The opportunity to share IBM's perspective on smarter buildings and smart cities. I'll talk about how IT and communication technology can leverage an exponentially growing data set streaming from the built environment in a way that benefits the economic, operational, and environmental mandates in today's world. But let me start with my definition of smarter. It starts with people, not technology. And I think those points were well made this morning. Thank you. How can we improve the quality of life? How can we improve productivity? How can we inspire? I had an inspiring moment this morning, in fact. And kind of in this role of building whisperer, I have become very critical as I go through campuses and in buildings. So I got here this morning, and I actually took my umbrella out of the briefcase because I was going to California from New York. And I pull into the Esri parking lot, and it says parking to the right, so I go, okay, and there's nothing in the first lot, there's nothing in the second lot, there's nothing in the third lot, and it's raining, and I'm like, oh man, okay. So I get out of the car, and I just start walking along the path along the buildings, and I start looking at the landscaping, and the beautiful indigenous use of ground cover and trees and just the buildings kind of peeping out from them. And all of a sudden I got lost in it, and I was back to, when I was 8 or 9 years old at my grandparents' camp in Canada, which is, a different biome, okay? But I got lost in that moment, and I felt that. So I think, Jack, you were responsible for a lot of that, so thank you for that moment. All right, so technology is a means to an end. Fortunately, oh yes, and this is my title slide. So fortunately, I think we're at a profound moment in history to leverage this technology. And we've talked, again, about that a lot this morning. We've kind of reached this critical mass of sensors that are out there in the built environment, and the ability to process the information coming from those sensors. We've kind of moved this internet that has connected people and ideas to now an internet of things, which is fast approaching 1 trillion connected objects in the physical world. And with that, the capability to do analytics, so the bandwidth to process that, the compute power to process that at the right price point. All of a sudden, all this is converging and making something very important possible. I think, in fact, we're at the dawn of a new day where these new constructs that we call big data, analytics, geospatial, cloud, mobile computing can be effectively applied to the built environment. A new day where technology can help us fix the very problems that largely are in place because of technology. So while it's imperative that every new project benefit from geodesign, the fact remains that our biggest problem and our biggest opportunity today is from this legacy environment of building stock and urban landscape that we have inherited. In fact, 70% of the carbon footprint in cities like Los Angeles and New York come from the building stock, not the transportation, as everyone would suspect. And if you look at this last year, 2012, we easily beat the record of the warmest year on record in this country. And unprecedented weather effects like Sandy, which hit my house. And I mean, literally, you just take some of the examples. If you look at the devastation, fortunately, I was not hit that bad. I'm not right on the coast. But just one example, there was enough water that went through the subway tunnel from Manhattan to New Jersey to equal the volume that goes over Niagara Falls. And with that, all the contamination from that tunnel that went into the water. So clearly, it's time for a change. And I think a great place to start, that I found good receptivity, is in our educational institutions, from universities to our public school systems. Because they are a great place for thought leadership, for research, but also because they're creating the thought leaders of tomorrow. And the other interesting place that I found a good receptivity is Department of Defense, not just in this country, but other parts of the world. They are, if you look at DoD in this country, they are the biggest user of energy. So they are focused on it. Always with a focus on readiness for mission, but focused on how they can better use their natural resources. Yes, this is largely a design problem, a lack of holistic design. Holistic being the key word, that considers how buildings can contribute in a positive way to the quality of life of its occupants and the greater ecosystem that the buildings belong to. Creating and reimagining buildings and cities requires a design solution that really does require the values of people tied to science, tied to technology. So where to begin? And that's what everybody asks me. Okay, Dave, we're sold. Where do we begin? Let's start with an educational system right here in Los Angeles. This is a project that we've started with Esri and CitySource, who's here today also. And the wonderful thing about this is we're actually going to look to our grandchildren to help us with this project in the school district. So the school district and many universities are like cities unto themselves. And if you look at the stats on this, 700,000 students, and if you add in the faculty and parents and support community, you're talking over 1 million people and that's involved directly with the government and of that school system. It's like a small city, or actually a large city in this country. It covers 710 square miles, 300,000 maintenance service requests per year. And they all of a sudden got this idea they wanted to be one of the greenest school districts in the country. So how do they do that? When they don't have the funding, they don't have the budget to implement a lot of technology, a lot of new sensors, right? What they did have was one of the products that we make in IBM called Maximo, which kind of tracks and helps with the maintenance of all the assets, the physical assets in the school district. Okay, so how do you tie that to what's happening in real time on that campus? Well, again, no budget to put in lots of new smart sensors. What we do have is lots of students with smartphones from K through 12. So what do they do with smartphones? They use apps. It's a very natural thing. So working with CitySource, we developed an app. Working with Esri, we geotagged this app so that they could report on what's happening in the school. It turns out people and even grandchildren are the smartest sensors we have. Because what we want to understand is what are they seeing that's happening in that built environment that's affecting their quality of life, their ability to learn, their ability to be inspired. So by enabling each of these smartphones, they became the green reporters for the school. And we connected it to this Maximo product so that rather than the old way, which we've all experienced, right? You call up and say, you know, this room is too cold, it's too hot, can you help me out? You know, and then somebody appears a couple hours later with a hammer and a flashlight, you know, worst case, but they're actually seeing what they're reporting, action being taken on, things getting fixed. Now, this is just very fundamental, foundational, but think for a moment, how would you reimagine reinventing this city with this capability? What could be done to drive this forward? I think it's a great opportunity. So let me just give you a couple examples. Reports coming in that a room is cold, but what the students are seeing is it's cold because the window's broken and there's a security issue there. Using crowdsourcing techniques to understand not just somebody that's always cold, but that the majority is cold or the majority doesn't feel safe. What changes can you affect? What can you start to learn in terms of policy decisions as you move forward? Anybody have any ideas right now of what you could do with a system like this in place? Yeah.
You can see where
Exactly. So seeing where, you know, if there's an area of the school district where you're getting the most broken windows, the most safety problems or security problems, you see this pattern, rather than just going in and fixing it, you can actually change, make changes so that that doesn't happen. And maybe it's solved by landscaping, or maybe it's solved by new fences, or maybe it's solved by better policing. But the whole idea is to understand those patterns. But the key thing in involving the students is to make them part of the equation, make them part of the transformation. So you can bring in techniques like gamification, right? That's what gets everybody going, you know. If I look at my children and my grandchildren, things like Angry Birds. Gamification, that's what gets people excited. So who's the best green reporter? Or what's the cumulative impact of this grade level in terms of what they've done? I asked my son-in-law, why isn't there more of a movement among young people in the space of green and environmental change? And he said it's not because we don't care, it's because we don't think we can make a difference individually. So just seeing the cumulative impact, I think, is huge. And that's something that we can do with technology. Again, now, the type of skills that you bring in this room, think about this scenario. Help us reimagine it. Help us move forward with this. I think collaboration and coming up with ideas, we've got this foundation now, can be transformative. It can be replicated across different school districts. On Monday, IBM is going to announce the next 3 school districts we've been working with and what we're doing. So the great news is it's catching on, but we need to leverage it. We need to think of it in the context that we're talking about in this room. Another, as I said, very receptive audience is the DoD, and this is a project that we just announced in the UK. And if you just look at these figures, it is staggering when you look at what the DoD manages. This, in the UK, it's 900 square miles, 45,000 buildings, 55,000 houses, 135,000 single living spaces. I just pulled this map off of the internet. It's one of the campuses they own that they want to repurpose away from military use to more of a multi-purpose for the community. What an opportunity we have to retrofit or rebuild these environments into something that's much more attuned to people. And the experiment is not just happening in the UK. We've got quite a diverse set of areas we can work on with challenges that go from Norway to the Falkland Islands. So I think it's a great opportunity. Again, it's a joint project with Esri. It's an urgent problem. 45% of the carbon emissions in the UK are coming from the built environment. So I think, you know, as we move forward with this project, and this one we're using a capability we acquired in IBM called Tririga. And one of the things Tririga helps enterprises and public entities do is just understand what space they have. It's amazing how many mid to large size enterprises don't even have that view. You know, I think renewables is fantastic, and you know, LEED certified building is great, but you know what has the lowest carbon footprint? Releasing space that you don't need. Being on top of your space requirements. I was in Italy last May talking to the DoD there, and it's the guy, it was in Rome, he's in charge of all of the buildings that Italy has. Now, Italy's kind of in that group with Portugal and Greece and Spain that are really putting some pressure on the euro in terms of fiscal responsibility and the expense, the cost. So they're trying to take cost out of their DoD. And he said, Dave, honestly, I don't even know how many buildings Italy has for the DoD. And of those buildings, how they're used, how much they're utilized. The good news is we have the technology to do that. It's a great starting point. It's such a big opportunity when you look at the size of these portfolios. When Shannon said, Dave, I need your charts tomorrow, think it was, I pulled this chart together. It's a kind of something I've used in other initiatives like autonomic computing. It's because customers always say, but where do I start? You know, that's just too intimidating. I'm so far behind. In fact, that was the guy in Rome. I think this is a great day, but I don't even know where to start. So, you know, I think it's important to help people with this is not something that happens overnight. It is something that could be better characterized as a journey. So helping entities see themselves in this journey. Where are you at the managed stage, at the optimized stage, or at the transformative stage? I tried to put some definition, some bullets down here that night, getting these charts ready for Shannon, but I just throw it out to you as kind of a beginning idea that I would welcome your input. Obviously, when you add the tools of geodesign and everything we've talked about, it's really going to help you move to this stage of optimization. Majority of entities I work with are at this managed stage, and so much we can do there. But how do you use tooling to become more efficient, to improve quality of life? So it's all about how you organize and analyze and visualize the data, and do it in a way that, as much as possible, as you said, in a standardized format in the previous talk, to create information that's available that truly is defensible, so we can have that conversation that is intelligent and not superficial. And invoke real-time analytics to improve decision-making, which is another big area I focus on. But ultimately, I'll get to that transform stage, where we can build environments that are not just net neutral, but net positive, ones that give back to the environment. And that's where a lot of the work I do in building physiology falls into place. Work where we can do simulation of system dynamics, predictive analytics, automated real-time response to improve the environment. But again, I welcome your feedback on that. I put this chart up, I think, also to reemphasize a point Brand made, that it's not something that happens overnight. It's a very iterative process. Within each of those stages, there's a lot of iteration. But it's just about whatever instrumentation you have, collecting that data and analyzing it and identifying areas and acting on them, and then trying out different things, applying changes and looking at the results, and then based on that modifying, you know, what you want to measure and going through that. And I also put this chart up because a lot of people say, why is IBM in this space now? I mean, I thought IBM was like an IT company, right? But if you look at this chart, it's all about data, complex data sets, analytics. So IBM, when we got into the Smarter Planet strategic focus as a corporation, was all about leveraging that capability that we've used in the IT world and applying it to the physical world or built environment. So I think the Smarter Built Environment, and agree, we're at a point where it's a new beginning. We have a new way of thinking about the world we live in. Working with companies like Esri, we're already deploying solutions that are improving our world, but it's just the beginning. And so I'm just trying to join the call to action here. I think collaboration from the type of ideas and skills that we're bringing together in this summit is the answer. We just recently did a CEO survey. We do it every 2 years, and one of the CEOs talked about companies having to come out of their silos as a company and start to more openly collaborate with other companies and partners, because this is the quote I pulled from that: collaboration really amplifies innovation, and to stay competitive in today's world, you need that help.